Dustin from the Red Bed Plains. You are now listening to Through the Prairie Smoke.
Dude,
What's up?
what are you lighting up?
Hey, I'm lighting up my pipe over here.
What's
And
in the pipe?
I'm sure you might be able to smell it from over there. But this is a Cornell and Deal collaboration with Warped Cigars. Here in my hand, I've got Scarecrow, and this is a numbered 10. Number 3,506 of only 4,000 made. This is kind of the Halloween seasonal blend. And, in the past we've talked about some people smoke for the tobaccos themselves, and then other people are like, I'm shopping for the atmosphere. That's the smoke I'm looking for, the atmosphere. And this tin of pipe tobacco does both. You want to hear about it?
Yes, I do.
So, if you are interested in the
Roll
tobacco,
that wonderful bean footage.
in this Scarecrow, we've got aged Virginias, matured Burleys, and red Virginia Cavendish, pressed and sliced into crumble cakes. And then, for people who want the atmosphere, Scarecrow. An eerie chill descends on your evening walk. Drawing your coat closer, you pause to light your pipe. The fragrance of earthy burley, hay-like Virginias and caramel apples and candy corn mingling with the oncoming mist. Crossing the cornfield just off the road, you spot the Scarecrow, silent, still. You've seen him before, but you can't shake the feeling that this time he sees you too. So there's your atmosphere for smoking this candy corn flavored pipe tobacco.
Is that what you get? Do you get candy corn?
In the tin itself, it absolutely
Like smelling it?
candy corn.
Yeah.
However, smoking it, there's some of that sweetness to it.
Yeah.
But it's probably the Virginia Cavendish that I mostly get when I'm smoking it.
Yeah. Too bad it's a limited run.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't, you could hand that out at Halloween. to all the adults walking around with those little candy zombies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The gremlins. What do you got going on over there?
Well, so we have been smoking a little bit. You started a new pipe, and I'm smoking this thing down, and it's Lost and Found Angosaurus. I'm really liking it. I've bought a lot of them.
This is
because I love them so much.
One of your favorites, right?
Yeah, right now. Yeah, this jumped to in my top 5. I just stumbled across it.
Tell me about Lost and Found.
So, Lost and Found, one of the guys is from Caldwell Cigars, which I like as well. The other one, I don't have in front of me, so I always lose the other guy. But they teamed up, and their brand is Lost and Found. They do something kind of unique. They go around and they buy up leftover runs from different cigar makers, whether it be like a cigar that just didn't do too well under branding, or they just have extras, or they just never used them, or they're not going to use them. How I understand reading it, a lot of them have been aged for a while because they've been sitting...
Yeah.
And just not being used. So, it's kind of unique. So, not to waste stuff. When I was reading it, my first thing is, oh, so you're selling off all the trash cigars.
Yeah.
But I bought 5 of them to try them out. Now, I will admit, the reason I bought 5 of them, what drew me to the cigar was before I read the story, was this awesome cigar ring.
Yeah.
It's a dinosaur. It's black and gold, and it has a dinosaur on it, and he's holding tobacco leaves.
Absolutely.
And I was like, yeah, I'm buying that cigar. And then it also has a little dinosaur footprint on the side that says 2024. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
They put their branding on their bands. I don't know where they got this cigar. They don't disclose that.
Of course.
But, dude, I wouldn't be surprised if it came from, like, one of Davidoff's branches or something like that. It may not be a Davidoff, but it's up there. They're pretty good. They're not that expensive. They're actually, this one was just under $10.
Mm-hmm.
So, not bad. The site that I got it from was having a 15% off after I bought these 5. And I'd already smoked like 2 of them. And I'm like, man, these are so good. I was like, I gotta go back. And they just happened to have a sale. So I bought 5 more. And then later on that day, I was like, why am I just getting 5? So I went back and bought 10 more.
Nice.
So, anyways, yeah, it's up there right now. Every time I get a cigar, I cut it, and I always do a cold draw. Mm-hmm. Some people do, some people don't. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't get too far into it where I'm all like, oh, I taste this, this, and this.
I was going to say, tell me why you do
I
that
do.
cold draw.
I mainly do it because of a draw.
Just to see how
like, I want to see how good it's going to be on the draw. And then that determines if I'm going to need my little poker or not. And I hate using my little poker because I'm not good at it. So I end up stabbing through the wrapper. And then
your draw's really messed up.
Then I get my cigar glue out and I repair it. And then it still doesn't have a good draw. So I like keep stabbing at it because I don't have the finesse to I don't have the patience.
Yeah.
So anyways, and then it makes me really mad. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
Break it in half and throw it away.
But usually that's why. But when I cold draw these, it's like I could almost just sit there and cold draw the whole time because it tastes pretty good.
So like in 2025, are they going to have that same ring to throw around a cigar, but it's going to be a different cigar and you're going to be totally disappointed?
See, that's weird. Like, I just don't. I need to read more into that story because there has to be more details into that. How I probably didn't explain it very well, but that's kind of the idea of why they called it Lost and Found. They had some other cigars that were in these bundles, and I'm curious to try those out too. And it doesn't really say limited or anything like that, you know, so I don't really know if, unless they just found a mothership full of them.
Yeah.
And so
there's an underground vault that
I
just
like
has
to
these.
I like to dream and hope that that's the case, that they're just never ending. But it is a cool label.
Yeah.
It's the Angosaurus on it, and pretty neat.
You got to submit some of your artwork to some of these cigar brands and be like, "Hey, I'm a big fan. Can you put this bunny on one of your rings?"
Yeah. Put Fred the Bunny on your label, and I'll stick a cigar in his mouth, and then it'll be related to whatever you're selling. I don't know, man. Some of these cigars have some really cool rings. I want to do kind of like one of those scrapbooks. And just start putting all my, because I save all of them.
Yeah.
I have a shitload of rings.
Yeah.
But anyways, I want to just start like a stamp collection. Just start collecting them. I think that'd be cool.
You know, I mostly smoke a pipe, but when I had first started smoking cigars, I was taping. I'm sure that's not the proper way to store your rings in your journal. But I was taping all my rings inside this journal and writing down my notes. Mm-hmm. And on some of them, it was just like, this was real bad, and I threw it away. But others are like, you know, it's kind of fruity, tasted just like tobacco at the beginning, but then as it smoked, it started to get the fruit taste or something, you know. So just whatever notes that I noticed.
Yeah. I didn't think it through when I started writing down new cigars that I tried, and I just have this list, and I'm still updating it as I go. But I got ahead of myself and didn't think that maybe I should put like good or bad. So now I just have a list of all the ones I've ever had. Yeah. And if I go back, I'm not going to know which ones I liked or disliked. I mean, there's some that I'm all like, yeah, I'll never get that one again. And I know I won't get that one again. But you know, for the most part, I've probably discarded maybe 3 cigars throughout my whole smoking career.
It's a hobby.
So, where I just couldn't finish them because they were that gross. But
Yeah.
it's very rare that you find one that's that bad.
Yeah.
I've struggled through a few of them. But that's what makes it hard when you buy, well, I'm sure with tobacco too, is that do you just buy one stick to try it and then you end up liking it and then you don't have any more to smoke until it comes in the mail?
Yeah.
Or go to your brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And so anyways,
You
and
know,
we don't have one in my town. I have to drive an hour away to get one, so
Yeah.
I have to do most of mine online. And so I usually, if I'm not like, haven't seen reviews, heard reviews on it, I usually, my rule of thumb is to get at least 2. That way, if you like it,
Yeah, of
you
course.
can smoke both of them. Or
Make
you
sure.
can keep one to
Mhm.
age it. Or you just don't like it, and then you try to, at least you only have to get rid of 2 and not a box or 5 or whatever.
Yeah. You know, I always recommend shopping at your local tobacconist
Yeah.
if you got one. But it's one of those things, you know, this tin of tobacco that I'm smoking is probably a $23 tin of tobacco at a tobacco shop.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the website I use is like $12.
Significantly cheaper, yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, there are sales that make them even cheaper, and, you know. But when I go into my local tobacco store, sometimes I'll buy a tin, and then I'll also get some bulk tobacco that I want to try.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm going to get that bulk tobacco, it's like, am I going to make that guy pull that jar down and weigh just 2 ounces? It's like, just get 4 ounces to make it worth
Yeah.
it, and then, I don't know.
Support your businesses.
Yeah, of
your
course.
little businesses. And
Yeah, plus those guys are knowledgeable, you know.
yeah, that is one of their biggest benefits over online. Is, I mean, maybe not all brick and mortars, but
Sure.
most of them.
Yeah.
Know the product, and they can at least steer you in the right direction if you're looking for something new. That way, you're not going blindly and just like reading some description online and being like, well, I could probably like that.
Yeah. Well, we
Do
got
you-
some smoke going.
Yeah, we got that going on. So what do we usually do?
We're going to
We
go
go through it.
the prairie smoke.
Tyler, tonight we're talking about something that makes me cringe
Yeah.
and creeps me out.
This is so funny about you because I learned this only recently.
You can't tell me that it doesn't freak you out.
I get how it's unsettling.
Guys, tonight we're talking about doppelgängers.
You mean just people that look like you, right?
No, man, that's the modern use of this
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
No, we're going to reach back. Back to the beginning, what it really meant for the doppelganger. You know, nowadays the modern word, it's used
The current understanding.
completely different. Yeah. When you've heard this word, you probably think of, oh, you ran into a person that looks exactly like you. They always say you have a twin out there
Yeah,
somewhere. You know, there's actually
Statistic.
statistics on that. And I actually have 2 of them wrote down.
Well, let's hear it.
It says 7 people in the world look just like you.
Hmm.
It says that researchers have calculated the chances of running into your own doppelganger. The results are 1 in 135.
Huh.
So, there's people out there that look just like you.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about today.
No,
No. That's not what scares me. Not me running into a guy that looks like me.
Yeah.
But the doppelganger.
Mm-hmm.
What is a doppelganger, Tyler?
Well, German word means double goer. You know, apparition or double of a living person.
Yep.
That's it. We have some dates for potential first usage. Of course, it's a German word. It looks like it appeared in a novel. I don't sprechen Sie Deutsch, but Sebunkus by German author John Paul.
Yep.
I haven't read this. I just picked up a synopsis, but it's something like the thorn and the rose and the whatever else and the life of public servant such and such.
Basically, just pop in a CD, a seal, and listen to his.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
No kissing roses here. But
Yeah.
anyway, this character meets his doppelganger, who has the name Life Giver, but the German words. But anyway, this Life Giver character is like, you should fake your death. And so the dude takes his advice and fakes his death and then meets someone to develop a romantic relationship with. So it's like birth, death, wedding is in the title as well.
Like that, yeah.
But anyway, it's a 3-part novel.
4 funerals and a wedding.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That's the first use of the word.
Yeah, that we can.
That goes back that we could find. You know, there's the saying, "My evil twin."
Yep.
That kind of derives from this.
Yeah.
Because doppelgangers are often a bad omen.
Yeah.
If you see your doppelganger, it's a bad omen. They're creepy, dude. They're creepy. All right.
So in your fantasy, in your creep out fantasy, what happens? What's creepy about them?
Just the emptiness.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Like, say I ran into you, but it wasn't you.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm like, hey, Tyler. That's not how we greet each other.
No,
it's
it's
like,
not.
hey, what's up, gangster? Anyways, but no, I'd walk up and I'd be like, hey, man, did you see that game last night? And then you'd look at me and you might as well have black eyes. Because he would just be like soulless.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. And it's just the emptiness. And then it just creeps me out.
Yeah.
And that always has creeped me out. I don't know what it is. It's just weird.
In your analogy, though, that is kind of how I stare at you if you're going to ask me a sports question.
Yeah, that's why I threw it in there. I was all like, because you did just then when I said it, you were like, "Wait, that's not what we what? What's the sports you speak of?" So that's kind of just what the main thing that creeps me out about it is the whole just the
not
not so much the bad omen, like you know. But I guess if I saw myself, I'd be like, "Well, shit, I'm gonna go buy a bunch of lottery tickets and drain my banking account."
Yeah, because
I'm unresponsible or irresponsible, greedy.
That's a big risk.
Don't want to save my money for my family after I'm dead.
That's why you use the credit cards.
Yeah, that's right. It's not real money.
Yeah, max them out.
Yeah. Ching-ching.
I give terrible financial advice.
I will always stick to that.
It's not real money.
Time, good old Sweet Tea here said, put it on the credit card. And then he says, it's not real money.
Yeah.
In a sense, anyways. Do they creep you out?
I had not given it a lot of thought.
Yeah.
What draws me to these stories is more of what I've read about, like astral projection and time travel and stuff like that. But traditionally, in this German usage of the word, it was a bad omen. And you're going to run into yourself, and if you do, you're going to die in a few days. A few days later, you're going to die. So, in this traditional use of the word, there's not really a lot of other people encountering someone that looks like you. You know, it is specific to you encountering yourself. Right. And the thing that you talk about is the doubles that are out there who look like someone, but they are not that person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You ever done that?
What's that?
Have you ever mistaken somebody
that
you thought for sure was the person that you were talking to, but it was not?
Yeah. So I went to college with a fella, and years later I thought I ran into him, and I just walk up to that guy and put my hand out. And I'm like, hey, so how's it going? And that dude just stares at me, and I'm just staring back at him now because I'm so unsure of what's going on, you know? And I was like, are you guy's name? He's like, no, I don't know who that is. I'm like, I am so sorry. Bail.
Tyler.
Yeah.
What if that was his doppelganger?
Yeah. Could be. Now, you didn't specify if you're communicating with these guys.
Even before I even knew the word doppelganger, like stuff like that just creeped me out, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a strange fear to have, I guess.
No.
But it, like you say, yeah, it's mine is more kind of seeing somebody else that's not that person, but it is that person. You know what I mean? But in a doppelganger sense, in most stories, it's about that person seeing their double. That's why we're going to talk about it, because it's creepy and it's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
It's been covered in movies. It's been covered in books. It's been covered in TV shows.
Yeah.
In folklore.
Yeah.
And eyewitness accounts of it really happening. So it's just really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that.
Well, sure. If you wanted an account of the traditional stories, a good book to read is The Night Side of Nature.
Catherine Crowe.
Catherine Crowe. An alternate title is Ghosts and Ghost Seers. She has a chapter in there completely dedicated to doppelgangers. This book was written in 1848. Thank you.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8.
If you're interested.
Talks about doppelgangers. Yeah. It's accounts of people who were just walking down the street and ran into themselves.
Yep.
And it was weird, and they couldn't stop thinking about it. And they told all their friends, and their friends said, "You're crazy," and then they died.
Yep.
Not the friends, the person who saw the doppelganger.
Now that when we're talking about that, there is, like, I think it's the first story in that chapter. It's a guy that sees his friend.
Yes. Yeah.
And then chases his friend down.
Yeah, because the dude's running through a gate and all that other stuff.
Yeah, but then it turns out it's weird. You'll have to check it out on your own. I'm not going to go into detail, but both of them end up dying. So that was a weird thing.
Really weird.
And so that's kind of what, like, mine is more like, not myself, but, you know. And then there was another story in there about the lady that's walking with her husband on the grounds of their, I take it, their house, and they're walking down the path, and she sees this guy doing, you know, something in the garden, and then she looks at her husband and says, "Hey, who's that? You know, we don't have gardeners. We can't afford gardeners. What is this?"
She's like, "I sent all the gardeners home."
And the gardener turns around, and it's her husband. But her husband, when she brings it up to him, he doesn't see the gardener. She does. And then she doesn't go into detail with him. Yeah. But then he dies shortly after that. So it's just like, these are the omens. These are the bad omens. But so it doesn't necessarily always, it's not always necessarily the person, but a lot of the stories are that it's a double. Yeah. So
this is also one of those things, you know, talking about ghosts and spirits and all that stuff, being these doppelgangers being around at death or shortly before death. I don't know. It just makes me think, is something already getting weak? Is the connection already losing? You know, and that's why it's able to float out there or whatever. You know, it's fascinating to think about what the implications of such things are. Yeah. But you know, me being a skeptic, it's just like, I can consider all those possibilities. I'm not looking for, this is evidence of whatever I'm looking for.
It's interesting to think of, how does this manifest? Why?
Right.
What? Yeah. Did you know that Abraham Lincoln, he has a tie-in to some doppelganger action? Yeah. He once saw a double image of himself.
Now, admittedly, he was looking in a mirror.
He was looking in a mirror, yes. Okay. But what's interesting about that story is that his wife, old Mary, she theorized that it was a foreshadowing of his death. Yeah. She said that
the reflection did not look well.
Yeah, because she said one face was him at the time, and then she stated that the other image was older and sickly, I guess. I don't know. So what she theorized was, he would make it through his first term of presidency, but he would not make it through the second term. And I thought that was interesting because that happened.
Yeah, of course. And we've talked about Mary Todd Lincoln before. She was big into spiritualism.
In the spiritualism movement. Yeah. That's a cool little tidbit.
Let's talk about one where it's more of a witness of a person. Let's talk about the story of Vice Admiral Sir George try on.
This guy,
He's a big deal in the military.
yeah, he's a big deal in the military, and actually, this is just like a side story of his life.
He is an important historical figure.
Yeah. But he had been out to sea with 2 of the ships, and they were doing movement drills, stuff like that. And while that's happening, his wife is throwing a big social gathering at their house.
Because
And-
he's out of the house, you think? She couldn't throw a
Yeah,
party
she's
with him around?
partying it up. And I did think that was weird. Like, it's like, oh, yeah, that's, oh, George is off to sea.
Yeah.
Let's party.
This is 1893. How progressive of this person to be throwing a party.
No one else, they didn't have anything else to do.
Of
They
course.
didn't have TV.
Yeah. No.
So let's just have a gathering, you know?
Mm-hmm.
At this gathering, here's old George in uniform and everything, walking down the stairs, walks straight through the crowd of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got Cindy Lou over here going, George,
Yeah.
hey, I didn't know you were here.
Yeah.
You know, I thought you were,
Thought
you were gone.
Thought you were hanging with the
I was
boys.
like, oh crap, we're in trouble now. But no reaction from this guy.
Huh.
He just walks through the crowd and walks straight out the front door. Weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he forgot something.
Sure.
I don't know. Keys
Yeah,
to the boat.
had to run
I don't
home right
know,
quick.
Something
Yeah.
like that. You know?
Yeah.
But it turns out, unfortunately, that he made a fatal mistake during their practices, and he caused a collision with their other boat, and he ends up dying from this.
Probably with other people as well.
Yeah. It is said that at the time of his death, the same was him walking through the crowd. So this technically is being said that this is his doppelganger apparition. So interesting.
Yeah.
Cool story.
Yep.
And now, you know, when you said that, this is going to sound horrible. You know, you made the comment, and many others probably died as well, you
Yeah.
know, because it takes
Yeah.
more than one guy to run one of those battleships.
Right. Yeah.
But do you think they were walking through their living rooms?
That is interesting. You
Yeah.
know, we'd
Right.
have to check the sea charts to see if there was like a Bermuda Triangle type.
Yeah. Going on.
knows?
Something's
Yeah.
happening here. So, yeah, that's one story.
And that to me makes me think of like astral projection. The spirits lost the connection to the body. You know.
Yeah, the doppelganger world is kind of crazy, and the more that I read into it, the more I get creeped out, for one.
Yeah.
And then there's other things that branch off from it, like so it's kind of neat.
Well, and you talking about these black eyes, or more non-expressive eyes, just people not recognizing you. That also could tie into Men in Black literature.
Yeah,
You know.
Yeah, that's the black-eyed children. Something to dive into someday.
Sure.
But yeah, see, that just creeps me out. But Men in Black too.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Will Smith.
No.
No, man.
No.
We're talking about
Though
the
that
other
is an
ones.
excellently fun
yes.
movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's
Comedy driven.
yeah, it's kind of dismissive.
But when you read the stories of Men in Black, like
It's so wild.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are talks about Men in Black showing up as clones of people. Now, the later Men in Black literature, it talks about, no, they weren't clones. They were just using the names of actual officers, but getting the ranks wrong and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That stuff is totally weird. Maybe we'll talk about that stuff in the future.
Oh yeah.
But,
Sure.
Anyway, that type of just unsettling. More of what doppelgangers, if you're encountering them, they're not casting shadows. There's not
Yeah,
reflections.
that was interesting. They had kind of a little tie-in with vampires, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Or fairies, like you know
Yeah.
you have mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says cast no shadows, have no reflection.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. How about another story? How about Emily?
Oh, your favorite, of
Yeah,
course. Let's talk about your
Emily
favorite
Saget.
doppelganger story. Uh-huh.
The French teacher.
Yeah. We know she was teaching in Latvia.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
what year? You got the year?
I thought it was 1845.
Right. She's teaching in Latvia.
And so it was said that there's not a lot on her.
Yeah.
But, and the story's actually kind of vague as well.
Sure.
There's three different authors that actually touch base on it.
Well, and who do we get excited about?
Oh, man, we get
author?
excited about this gentleman.
Yeah.
Because if you are a devoted follower of this wonderful podcast that
And
we
thank
have,
you if you are.
yeah, we appreciate you. In our series on the Fox sisters,
Mhm.
which I actually don't know if we mentioned it, but this is a good little tidbit out of that series.
Sure, yeah.
But there is a guy named Robert Dale Owen at the time was writing this book, Footfalls on the Boundaries of Another World. He wrote some of that book sitting in the parlor of the Fox sisters' house. Leah
That's
Fox.
awesome.
She
Yeah.
was in her house. He stayed with them for a while. A lot of these stories that we'll go through that are around that time period, I mean, this is just a big study. Like
All these people
like
were
all these
connected.
people
Yeah.
like intertwined.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat. So
Pulling on a thread
Yeah.
in some direction, you know.
in that book has a few pages
Right up
talking
on
about
Emily.
Emily. So anyways, back to her.
Mm-hmm.
French teacher, her students, one in particular, who is the eyewitness account that's passed it along to these authors.
Mm-hmm.
It was said that she'd be in the classroom teaching,
Mm-hmm.
and she'd be, let's say, at the chalkboard.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden, this manifestation of herself is sitting at her desk.
Mm.
Or there were times where she would be teaching class and someone would look out the window and see her walking down the path. Some had seen her in certain areas, and at the same time she'd be in another. It was said that when this would happen, they could see the color drain from her. She would get tired, get fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
And although it says she wasn't aware of this, but
Yeah.
I feel like she would have been, but she may not. She never saw her double, and she actually had been a teacher at several different schools, and it was said that this kind of followed her, like this was a common denominator in her leaving certain areas. And so that was kind of an interesting story. Her story touches base in other things. So like, because it is a little bit out of the realm of the many other stories about doppelgangers. So
Yeah.
they talk about bilocation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so basically that's where you have the ability to
Project
project
yourself,
I guess.
yeah.
And you could, but in bilocation, I could be sitting here in this garage doing this podcast, but I could project myself in England,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And if we could do that, Tyler, this podcast would go nuts.
Yeah.
Like, it would go off the charts.
You know, through the miracle of editing, we can make something like that happen.
Yeah. Let's do it. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're listening. So anyways, her story has actually been considered to be more bilocation than doppelganger.
Yeah. And you know, that concept, there are religions, you know, monks practice this, going through meditation and all this stuff, and they talk about being able to end up in other places.
Yeah.
A lot of the literature that I read about this stuff is from the 70s. So I'm
Prime
behind
time.
in modern.
Prime time.
I am just so fascinated with that peak of the new age. It's so interesting.
Speaking along those lines of New Age, I feel like she just didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And I feel like if she had a certain person to guide her,
What could she have
could
accomplished?
done a lot.
Yeah.
It's too bad she didn't meet Charles Xavier. I mean,
Yeah,
he
of course.
would have.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
Slap some paint on her.
Actually-
call her Nightcrawler. Give her a tail.
Yeah. Well,
Dude. Or is that different?
He wasn't
Is that different?
doubling himself.
Oh, he was just
He was just bamfing.
relocating his whole self.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he had a sister.
Got a little variation of that.
Wasn't he
gene.
French? Or what was he speaking?
He had a
Accent.
regional accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlike mine.
Yeah.
So that touches a little bit on Emily
Yeah.
Sage.
I
It's a cool last name.
If we're pronouncing, do you know you're pronouncing it right?
Actually, I do.
Okay.
Because I was calling her, I think I was calling her Emily Soggy or something like that. And so I looked it up, and actually it's Sage is what it's pronounced. And that sounds a lot better than old Soggy Bottoms.
What about Leah Fox Underhill? Mm-hmm. She's got a story about Uncle John in her missing link in modern spiritualism. What's that story?
Good question.
I thought you read that book,
dude. I have read that book twice, and you think I would know this. It was similar to a doppelganger situation. I believe what happened is he injured himself and was knocked unconscious from falling off a horse or something like that. But I know there was an accident involved. They had taken him into a neighbor's house where he had his accident. Mm-hmm. But his family saw him at their house. And when they find out that that's not really him, then they go searching for him, but he turns out to be okay.
That's good.
So unlike some of the other stories, where they actually die and stuff. I don't know if you consider it doppelganger, but it's pretty close.
Sure, yeah.
Or it falls in those guidelines.
That's the thing.
So
it's kind of loose. It could include vampires. Yeah. So
yeah. No reflection.
It goes back to that projection thing. And in the 6th grade, I read Embraced by the Light, which I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember it being a story about someone who passes and then their experience of the afterlife before they come back. This is a popular theme in literature. There are many books that come out. Every generation has a big one. But anyway, that somehow got me interested in that topic, and I started looking into out-of-body experiences. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you hear about it, people having surgery or something like that. They will feel themselves hovering at the ceiling and looking down at themselves being operated on. And there are studies looking into that where they had displays that you could only see on the ceiling, and it was random. But they were testing to see if you can get up there and look down. Hey, there was a display. Did you notice if there was anything on display? And it'd be like a basic image, like a frog or a rabbit or something common. I haven't checked in on that study. I don't know what they found.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But it's more fun to think about the possibilities.
Yeah.
You know? So I also was trying to do this myself, have out-of-body experiences, and I can't remember where I read it. I read a lot as a kid. And I'm sure if I read the books that I read then as an adult now, I'd think, oh my God, how crazy. I was trying to figure out how to have an out-of-body experience, and I can't remember where I found it. I can't give you any quotes. But the concept is, if you think of yourself like a string on a guitar, and then you pluck that string, and those vibrations, if you can control those vibrations enough to get to the right feeling, you are able to exit your body, and you are connected by this thread. And I think the book specified it is red, and that's the line. And you want to make sure it's taut, and you want to make sure it doesn't break. But then you can wander around, and then you can go. Once you get out there, you can start with the astral projection part. And occasionally at my job, I'd come across a book called The Astral Projector's Area 51 Viewer's Guide. It was a guide on, if you could astral project, here was how to find Area 51 and what you would find there.
Crazy.
Yeah. I don't know why I don't have a copy of that book. I thought I do, but I actually have a book of how to view the actual physical location and not the place you can astral project to. So,
I see. Yeah.
So I'm probably 13, 14 when I'm reading and trying to do this stuff in my bedroom. One morning my alarm goes off, and I turn it off. I get out of bed, get dressed, and I'm going to walk out the door, but suddenly somebody's knocking on my door, and I wake up, and I'm still in bed. And I was just baffled because it was so real. What I had done in my experience in my dream was just so real.
That's crazy.
And it's something I still think about because of how strange it was.
Yeah.
Because I remember stepping over things on the floor as well. You know,
you could have got lost, Tyler. You need to be careful doing that.
Yeah. Well,
Went to the further, man.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk
Yeah,
about
man.
old James Wan. That was your experience.
Yeah.
Your introduction to
Yeah,
this concept.
that was my introduction. I actually didn't know that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I watched Insidious for the first time, watching that movie, it was unlike any other horror films that we had watched, and I was digging it. And
Yeah.
basically the basis of that movie,
Mm-hmm.
where the kid projects and then gets lost in the further, and then it just starts this whole movie. Anyways, if you haven't seen it, which is weird.
What are you doing with your life?
If you haven't, you should check it out. And even at that moment, I thought, man, James Wan, that's an awesome idea. And then it turns out this is a thing that people talk about.
Yeah.
Other than the lipstick demon and going into the further.
Right.
But anyways.
Well, and that's the thing. The kid in Insidious, he doesn't realize that's what's happening. He likely thinks he's dreaming and gets lost. So, no, I think that movie is cool. And just if we want to make a comment, if you will allow me to make ridiculous comments. Patrick Harper's book that I've talked about before, Daimonic Reality, I feel like Insidious is a good example. It's just, everything is just so weird. You watch that movie and there are things hidden in plain sight. I remember the third or fourth time we were watching it, I was pointing out the things, and you were like, I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
And it's one of your favorite movies. You watched it over and
yeah.
over. And when the seance happens, you have these ideas of what a seance is. But then this woman puts on a gas mask with a hose to
And
some
whispers
goober.
to some-
And that is just so...
some goober.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And
Yeah.
there's some criticism where the movie changes halfway through. And it's like, well, you got to do the setup, We do the setup and then we go to fairyland, I think it's like Illumination. They have this moment of things are not as they seem. And now there is this other place that we may be able to interact with.
Yeah.
And, of course, in the movie, it's literal. They can interact with it,
You think that's what it is, Beyond the Veil?
It's
a little weird.
That atmospheric stuff is so interesting. The family dressed in yellow or whatever. I think it's the movement. It is the movements that aren't quite human. Humans have very particular ways of moving. So maybe it's the whole, you're talking about them not being here, but I'm thinking like not human.
Yeah.
It's one of those monsters that are out to get me,
Well, that plays in as well as not just that you're not seeing the person in their eyes, but also movement. I know what you're talking about, but I'm more like, the mannerisms of somebody that you've known your whole life, and they're not doing those mannerisms anymore, and they're more stiff, I guess, and then they're also dead in the eyes. So that's creepy. That's just God, let's not talk about it. It's creepy. Anyways, so this whole thing that you've been talking about, and there was something in there that kind of reminded me of something I watched, and I'm sure people have run across this before, but this actually kind of plays more into what I would call reincarnation. But there's a little bit that touches this that's kind of creepy with my creep factor, and it is. I'm just going to use an example. I don't know names or where I saw it or anything like that, but there was this boy. And what they theorize is that he is this guy that was a fighter pilot, and he has been reincarnated into this boy. And the parents have noticed stuff throughout his growing up, just stuff that he would talk about, and that's what sparked this whole study on him. And he remembers things, but the creep factor there is that I put myself in the parent's shoes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sitting in the living room watching TV. And I look over and he's sitting on the floor. And now that I know this about him, I'm looking and I'm like, man, that's like a 45-year-old guy sitting there on the floor.
At times.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? It's creepy.
I read an article recently, and it was from the parent perspective. The pediatrician that they went to talk to, they selected them because there was something about them dealing with this stuff before, and this pediatrician was like, we see it occasionally, and typically they grow out of it by 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And that's wild. We have mutual friends who are fascinated by this topic. You can get on YouTube and you can have somebody read a past life regression hypnosis session to you. Don't do that while you're driving. But I don't know, it's fascinating. If you want to consider active imagination as just a part of working out these things and what the possibilities are, and if you just kind of let your mind figure out what it wants, maybe you can have your own past life regression.
Yeah.
Maybe back to a time when you were a critter, even.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? Not to say this is something literal that can happen, but this is something that can alter your perception or help you think about things in a different way.
Yeah.
You know?
Have you ever, I used to do this a lot. I would look in the mirror
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden just get in this basically like a trance. And I would be locked in on my reflection.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff would go through my mind is like I'm a stranger. Like who am I? What like I'm somebody else in this body.
Yeah.
And I'm like I would have it, and it was so eerie and creepy, and I always thought there was something wrong with me. I even brought it up to people, and people would be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I always thought there was something. I'm like, God, something's not right. But I guess I've grown out of it, but I still talk about it because it's still something I know, and thankfully it doesn't happen anymore because it really would freak me out. So I think some of this stuff is just, are you starting to see where this is coming
You
from?
know, when we talked with my dad, when we did that interview with him in his buildings, we were having some chats. They were talking about, I can't remember the exact words that we were using, but just this knowledge, this wisdom, this experience, you know, it is trained out of us. And I'm going to talk about daimonic reality again, because it's about Neoplatonic thought, and it's just a fascinating way to view the world. And as I was reading it, I realized when I was a very young child, that is how I viewed the world. Like, everything happened for a reason. It was supposed to happen that way. And I was getting signs all the time, you know, like, you're supposed to go here, or that thing happened to show you this. Now you have to do this. Like, that's just how my mind worked.
Yeah.
And so reading that book made me just go back and rethink all of those things that were just these hugely important things as like a 8-year-old or something.
Yeah.
But like, probably just pretty mundane. But yeah, they had strong meaning then. And the point of the book is you can still think that way.
Yeah.
There are signs all around you. You
Oh,
can
yeah. Yeah, for
still
sure.
use your imagination. And just because something isn't literal, that doesn't mean it's not real. That doesn't mean it doesn't have some effect.
Yeah. Well, you know, since we were talking about Insidious, there's a lot of media out there that touch base on doppelgangers.
Yeah.
They're some of my favorites, even knowing it's one of those things you're like creeped out, but you also stay close to it. There is this really cool episode of The Twilight Zone. It's called Mirror Image, and it's about a lady that is at a bus stop. While she's waiting for the bus, weird stuff starts happening. Like, she goes up and talks to the guy at the ticket desk, asking about when the bus is going to be there, and he gives her attitude and is all like, you've already been up here and asked me this before, blah blah blah. And she's like, no, I haven't. Anyways, but it's just weird little things are happening. And like, kind of towards the middle of the episode, she goes to the bathroom. She's kind of freaking out because the more these weird things are happening, she's kind of like losing her mind. She goes to the bathroom to collect herself, and then when she opens the door, she sees in the mirror reflection her double sitting where she was sitting on the bench with her luggage.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I'm not going to say the whole episode and how it ends, but check it out because it is really good. The Twilight Zone, the original black and white ones, not the Jordan Peele ones. But speaking of Jordan Peele, I love his style.
Yeah.
I love his movies. He actually made a horror movie called Us. And that's about doppelgangers. And he actually was influenced by that episode.
Okay.
And, you know, there for a while, he actually had a short series where he was redoing Twilight Zone.
Right.
And also, there's an episode on Alfred Hitchcock's Presents, that TV show. This episode was titled The Case of Mr. Phelan. It's season 1, episode 10, if you want to check it out. The guy, his doppelganger's running around living his life, kind of basically trying to take over his life and then shut him out. And so it's just the whole episode is about him chasing his doppelgangers. And that one is actually based off of a book by Anthony Armstrong, published in 1940. The title of that is The Strange Case of Mr. Phelan. Sticking to that story, there's also a movie that's based off that book as well. And the movie is 1970, I think. And it's called The Man Who Haunted Himself. I have yet to watch it. It's on my list of things to watch. But I did do a little bit of reading on it, doing my little studies. This is just a cool little story. In the movie, the main character is in this car wreck. It's a car accident on M4 highway. That's in the movie. It was directed by Basil Dearden. He died in a car accident on M4 highway a year after the movie came out.
Wow.
And, car wreck. He dies in a car wreck. Same highway, same. Yeah. Like, isn't that's crazy. Weird. That kind of interesting.
That's a strange coincidence. Yeah.
So those are some things you can watch if you want to get spooked out,
You're talking about movies and stuff. What about books? Your boy Poe.
My boy Poe. Yeah. He has actually he does have a famous story of Doppelganger, William Wilson. It's a short story. So I recommend it, especially if you're a Poe fan and you haven't read it. You definitely want to stop what you're doing. Well, don't stop listening to us. But after this episode, you can check it out because it's
just go over.
It's a
to
really
your
cool
shelf.
Story.
You've got his collected works on the shelf.
Yeah.
Just pull it off and read it.
Yeah, it's in there. It's one of his more well-known stories. But
so, you emailed me this outline of what we were going to be talking about, and you put that in there. And so I get my copy of Poe off the shelf, and I open it up, and I start reading it. And I remembered why I don't read his short stories. His poetry is great. I like his poetry a lot. But he's just like, you condescending jerk-off. Just get to the point, But it is a
Tyler, man,
beautiful way of writing.
Jeez.
For poetry.
Just throw my boy down. That's cool. You might as well just stomp on his books. I don't know.
I love his poetry.
No, we've actually talked about this in response to that. Everybody's different.
Yeah, of course.
And take me, for instance. I'm big on detail.
Yeah.
And I get carried away sometimes. And I'm very long-winded, and
who says that?
Oh man, everybody. I am long-winded, so when I start to tell a story, everybody's pretty much like grabs a bag of popcorn and gets settled in because it seems like I can't miss details.
That's the thing.
I'm just one of those kind of people.
Well, details are important.
Yeah.
Well,
they are.
They provide meaning.
But there's people out there that actually can manage the amount of detail and still make a great story.
Well, they're making a lot of assumptions in their imagination.
Right. My lovely wife, I drive her insane because she is the opposite. She is straight to the point. Like, she'll cut me off, basically. What are you getting at? What's the point? Like, I don't need all the details. She's one of those. So I imagine, and I can't speak for her. She probably does like Poe, but I imagine she feels the same way you do.
Yeah.
As far as some of his stories, because she's probably like, dude, just get to the point.
Yeah. The sentence is about 3 times too long.
Yeah.
You talking about your spouse doing that to you. My neighbor's across the street over here. I can talk to him all day long. Mostly it's him talking. I'm actively listening, mostly. But when it's the two of them together, I'll be talking to, and occasionally his wife will be like, why are you telling him that? This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. and then they'll start talking about something else, and then he'll say something. She'll be like, why are you bringing that up? Nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah. Has nothing to do with this. Like... Yeah.
And some people just need to tell a story.
I almost forgot what this episode was. we kind of strayed away from what we were talking about.
Well, it's all because I criticized Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, you kind of...
I didn't mean it.
It's your fault. You started it. Anyways, we cannot do this episode without bringing up a recording that creeps me out. I've made you listen to it, and I remember hearing it for the first time, and I was just like, it was one of those like, man, it just struck me to the core, dude.
Yeah.
I'm sure most people would listen to it and they would just laugh and they'd be like, this woman's nuts.
Yeah.
She's crazy. Do you remember the recording Coast to Coast?
Coast to Coast AM. What's the fella's name?
George Nooney?
He's the new one.
But I think he was on this episode with
yeah.
George Nooney.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember the other guy.
I can't eat good.
They both have like great voices.
Yep.
Like you on
Oh, gee, thanks.
Voices for the Radio.
Yeah, faces for the radio.
And then you got your own little co-hosts that are
local charm.
Yeah. So anyways, it's Bell though. It's Art Bell.
Art Bell.
Bell, yeah. Coast to Coast AM was great.
Yeah.
Anyways,
give us a synopsis of the story.
So this lady calls in. She is very disturbed. Like, she's very upset, you can tell. And she's telling the story of her and her daughter on their way home one night encounter a UFO sighting. So she's describing this, and he's asking her all kinds of questions. Basically, they witness this UFO, and then they end up going home. And for a short while after that, she starts noticing that her daughter is acting out of character, not herself anymore. And there's one evening, basically, she sees her daughter walk into her room wearing one of her nightgowns. So she thought that was weird, so she goes into her bedroom and nobody's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then she hears her daughter in her room. So she goes to her room and her daughter's not in that nightgown, and she's been in her room the whole time. But this lady is freaking out and telling this story, and she's very emotional because she feels like her daughter is not her daughter anymore, that she is an alien doppelganger. And so, anyways, it's if you can run across it, I don't even know what episode it was out of. I have the recording saved somewhere. Every time I listen to it, it strikes me to the core. But I was talking to Amber, which is my lovely wife, the other night.
And what did she say about it?
And she was laughing at me and said, do you think that the lady may have had a mental illness, or maybe she was schizophrenic and just called in? Or maybe she's just a very paranoid person?
Sure.
And I was like, well, yeah, those are all scenarios that can happen. But she saw a UFO, and she's not lying.
Yeah, of course. Why would you lie about that?
Of the alien taking her daughters,
pretty high.
Yeah, very high.
Yeah.
So I always wonder what that lady's up to nowadays. I always wonder if, like,
what
did
happened?
she ever find her daughter, or
they should,
or did she ever see the doppelganger again?
What's his name? He should
do
George
Nooney.
He should do a "Where Are They Now?"
Yeah, he should.
All the former callers.
Man, I'd jump all over that. Do you remember listening to it?
I do remember listening to it.
Do you think she was Looney?
I
feel like she was very upset. Like,
yeah, look, I don't know how to answer questions like that because human behavior is strange.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, there is no such thing as normal. So, I had a fella come in one day, and his car had broken down. This was at work. His car had broken down. We have a big parking lot, and he managed to get into the parking lot. And I'm working, but I'm kind of tied to a counter. And he wanders up, and what I'm doing allows me to have conversation with people. And so I just start talking to this guy. He's talking about waiting for a tow truck, and, I told him he's welcome to hang out. I got tables, places to sit, water fountains, hang out. And he instead just decides to chat with me. And it's this short fella, kind of wearing Western wear. I would describe him as white, just older guy. Told me he'd been through a divorce or two or something like that. He had COVID early in the pandemic, and he tells me that he just could not figure out why he was sick, and he was just praying to God and be like, "What? Why am I so sick? They tell me I've recovered from COVID. What's going on?" And he was like, "The TV was on, but I wasn't really watching it. I felt so bad." And he said, and then suddenly I noticed my front door was glowing red, and that redness came all the way down to a little bitty dot right at my peephole, and then that dot, it was a beam that just shot out and got me right in the forehead. And as soon as it hit me, I turned and focused on the TV, and there was a woman on the TV, and it must have been some commercial or something like that. And she just looked at me and said, "You have long COVID." And he's like, "Oh my God, I must have long COVID." And I don't know if he went and got medical care or, it was, at the time, it was like, we didn't know a lot about long COVID,
Yeah.
So, but that dude just came in and, sometimes I wear crazy jewelry that has like a Bigfoot on it or something like that. But I was just normal me
up to you.
who just comes and talks to me about his glowing front door and a laser beam hitting him in the head and then getting the message that he has long COVID. So I don't consider that a normal experience necessarily. That's unusual, but that's not the first time something like that has happened to me. So like that type of thing is common for me.
Yeah. That's cool.
We want to hear your stories. Reach out to us.
Yeah.
Okay. So another thing about this lady having a alien encounter that swapped out her daughter. That's typical of fairy stories as well.
Yeah.
Changing out your toddler for a changeling, which is like your toddler, but not your toddler.
Yeah.
And so these stories are old. We've told them, as a species, we've told them for a long time.
Yeah. Those are some creepy stories as well about fairies and stuff.
Yeah.
And we should definitely do an episode on that as well.
The other thing with your story for Coast to Coast, your spouse rightly points out, is like, could she have been having a mental episode? Of course. And especially things like that are probably particularly true for stories that are happening in the 17 and 1800s. Like, how do you explain someone having a stroke if you're not quite sure, what's happening?
Yeah.
Or dementia patients and things like that. And these are all horrible things that we have more of an understanding of today, but it is an example of people not quite being the same as who they are.
Yep.
Or who they once were. And sometimes it's accidents, sometimes it's medical reasons.
Yeah.
And there are wild stories about there's some famous story about a fellow who was working on the railroad, and he was packing dynamite to blow up a mountainside, and as he was using his tamping tool, it ignited and shot up. It went like through the front of his face, through his jaw, up through his head, and he survived. But it completely changed his personality, and he was prone to violent outbursts and things like that. And, it can happen, stuff like that can happen with drug use as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
A lot of actual reasons why someone may be different at a different point in their life. So, not always supernatural.
Yeah.
Have we covered everything we want to talk about?
I think so. I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep tonight, but
it's so funny to me. This is so low on my creep out factor.
Yeah.
I'm partially baffled sitting here listening to,
Yeah.
But I get it. I get that whole, something not quite right. And that is unsettling,
It's a uncomfortable feeling. I don't know. Hopefully I've described it well enough. Surely there's other people out there that are scared of doppelgangers.
Oh, of course,
But,
yeah.
It is, you know,
If
in
people
some
weren't
instances,
interested-
in some stories, it's like, yeah, it's not really that scary, but it's more, it's just the idea of being face to face with something, whether it be yourself or someone you know, and that they're just not there.
Yeah.
That it's and that's just creepy to me. That's
Yeah.
Wasn't there a movie? Wasn't there a movie, Astronaut's Wife? Something about it comes back from space.
That's
and
Astronaut's Wife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's basically an alien that's taken over the husband, and
That's the thing I don't remember. It's Johnny Depp.
I
It's-
actually can't say that I've seen the movie. I just remember when it came out that was kind of the basis of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, body snatchers, you know,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Well, you know, it can also lead into possession.
Yeah,
You know, maybe that's some of it too.
sure.
You know, I can watch possession movies, and it doesn't really freak me out as much as doppelgangers for some reason. But I don't know if it's just the way it's put on the plate, presented.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because right out the door, it's like, there's a demon in her
Yeah.
body, or his body,
Yeah.
and that's what's making him or act that way. But then all of a sudden he turns back to what he was, you know. I don't know if that's why I don't get so freaked out about those kind of stories, but it is similar.
Yeah.
You know, something's taken over that person, you know.
You talking about that, a person not quite being as they seem. Have you seen The Butterfly Effect?
Yeah.
That's one of those things where, you know, he is at some point trying to go back into his past to alter. And so when you are viewing the movie in the present and you see the character do something, like the one that sticks out to me is he's in a kitchen and suddenly he like zones out and then grabs a knife and he's holding it, and then somebody like he's going to do something with this knife, and somebody comes in and is like, "What are you doing?" And then he's like, "Oh, I don't know," you know.
Yeah.
Slipping in and out. And I think at the beginning of this episode I mentioned time travel stories. I wasn't quite meaning butterfly effect, but it's interesting that it came back around to that. But there are these stories of people seeming out of time and place, randomly showing up and like freaking out in the middle of big cities. And, you know, is it one of those things? This is a person who is having an episode.
Yeah.
Or is it they just teleported in here? It's a cold missing case from 50 years ago, but here they are staying in New York City.
Yeah.
And they've only got coins from 2 decades ago in their pocket, you know.
Yeah. Let's just do a little bit of a warning. If you ever find yourself in a red vest and a DeLorean pulls up and you decide, hey, I'm going to go into the future.
Uh-huh.
And you start messing with some stuff. Let's take some lessons from Marty McFly. And
Uh-huh. Don't drive too fast, I think is the
yeah,
lesson.
just don't get in a DeLorean and go 88. Well, some of this was about doppelgangers. Some of it was related to doppelgangers. Some of it was our hate for Poe. And then...
I speak for yourself. I love the guy.
guy couldn't ride his way out of a paper bag.
I don't think
Oh,
he made a
man.
lot of money.
He didn't, but
Like most great authors, they
His-
don't make money until
his
they die.
legacy carried on. Yeah, and it's great. Well, what do you think? Do you have anything else? You got any doppelganger stories of your own? Have you ever run into yourself?
I haven't. Your story about staring at yourself in the mirror,
Yeah.
I knew that I was looking at me, but I never felt like myself.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've told my parents recently, but it's like just now, even as ridiculous as I look right now, this is what I have always thought I would look like, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I don't think mine, it's kind of like what you first said, where you just don't feel like yourself.
Yeah.
I really like, it would creep me out. And then it was really heavy for a long period of time where, like, I actually almost got to the point where I wanted to cover mirrors. Like, I didn't want to look in the mirror because I knew once I locked eyes, like, it didn't take long. It's not like I had to sit there and focus on it.
Yeah.
It would be as simple as, like, brushing my teeth and just happen to look up in the mirror. And then all of a sudden it was like I would just zone in. And then it immediately stuff's rushing through my mind. Like, I legit felt like I was somebody else that reincarnated into this body, or how did I get in this body?
Yeah.
It's just so creepy. It's weird. And I would chalk that up to be probably the closest I've been to a doppelganger. I would think that would be kind of like seeing a doppelganger.
Sure.
I think you would run into yourself, and it'd be like that. I think, there was a while back, I think it was on American Idol. It was either American Idol or The Voice, one of those singing competitions. And I remember people were coming up to me and they're like, I saw you on TV last night. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, I saw you on TV last night singing. You have a good voice. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you need to look this guy up. Well, now I can't think of it. Of course I can't think of it when we're on a podcast and I'm trying to preach the word to everybody.
It's an audio medium.
There was this guy that it's the first time in my life, because I've been, everybody's been told, hey, you look like that person.
Yeah.
And then you look at that person and you're like, no, I don't. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But this is the first time I've ever looked at somebody and went, holy shit.
I look like that guy.
I sing like an angel. No. So no, but I did. I looked that guy up that night, and I was just like, I look like that guy.
Huh.
And it was weird. But I feel like if it was my real doppelganger,
yeah, it
would have been more like, I think you would know. I think the feeling would be there. I think you would know. Man, if you think of it, though, think about it. DNA plays into that.
Yeah.
And I can see that happening because there's only so much.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
I know everybody's unique in their own way.
It's like credit card numbers. If you sit there and smash at it long enough, you're probably going to come up with one. But, it'd be fraud if you did.
Yeah. Probably shouldn't do that.
No.
Don't do that.
What I'm getting at is, you randomize stuff so often, you're going to come up with the same things every now and then.
Yeah. So
you roll a die, it's going to come up the same number occasionally.
So follow us on Instagram. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcast and other platforms. And we would love it if you could rate us and give us a review, like good or bad, so we can.
I don't want the bad ones. We want to know what you're interested in.
Yeah. You can also email us.
Yep.
At throughtheprairiesmoke
at
gmail.com. We're on Linktree. That will give you all the listening options, and the email is on there as well. And then also we have a form that you can go to. And if you're interested in sharing your story or your experiences, we would love to have you on. And if you don't feel comfortable being on, but you'd like your story told, we can do it that way as well. But reach out to us. We just want to hear your experiences.
Yep, your story.
No judgment.
Yep.
We're there just to listen.
Yep.
Well, how was your smoke?
My smoke was real good.
Yeah. Look at this, dude.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
This cigar is like jumped up to my top 5.
Really?
Yes. And like every time I've smoked one of these the last 3 days.
Okay.
And every time I smoke it, I get down to, look, you see that?
Yeah, that's all the way down, man. It's burning
my fingertips because I've smoked it all the way past what I would call a nub.
Yeah.
I wish I had my poker so I could be like, I'll put it in a pipe. We'll put it in the pipe.
Yeah.
It was a good cigar. I kind of sad I didn't get to the other one, but it was a perfect cigar. It ends with the episode.
Yeah. It's been raining, so it's real humid, so that probably helped it.
Actually, it may be humid, but it doesn't feel like the humidity we had when it was warmer out. Because it's cooler. Like what is it, like 50s right now? Anyways, it's nice out, and it's been raining the whole time. Hopefully you guys can hear it in the background because it's really cool. Well, thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you continue to
play us off.
Is it play us out or play us off?
Play us off. I'm talking about a stage reference.
Oh, yeah.
So, play us off. That's
okay,
how
off.
you exit the stage.
All right. Sorry, everyone. We'll do better next time.
Yeah.
Well, play
us off. I would just like to say, we talk about word meaning and points of reference, and how words and things change. So the whole play us off thing, it's probably a dated reference. Does anybody go to the theater anymore? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, play us out. That's kind of the same thing, but you'd think that's on a TV show. It's the end of the episode. Like,
oh, yeah.
Play us out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I'll do better next time.
We'll do better.
So, play us off.
Play us out.
Whatever we say.
Out. We'll see you next time.
Walking down the avenue, I felt the chill in the air. Caught a glimpse of myself, but I wasn't there. Same worn out jeans, same faded tee, but something in those eyes was looking back at me. Oh, I've heard the stories, the whispers at night about someone out there wearing my light. But when face to face with the ghost in my skin, I know it's a game that I may not win. I'm shadowed by me, someone I can't see. A twist in the mirror, haunting mystery. He's got my life, my voice, my scars. It's me in the daylight, but dark under stars. Shadowed by me, can't break free. Always living my life just a step ahead of me. Just ahead of me. Tried to shake him, but he's always near. In the corner of my eye and in every mirror. A face I can't lose, a stranger I know. Wherever I turn, he's waiting below. They say we all got a twin in the crowd, but when he's that close, the world feels loud. Heartbeats quick and shadows fade, leaving me standing in the fear we made. I'm shadowed by me, someone I can't see. A twist in the mirror, haunting mystery. He's got my life, my voice, my scars. It's me in the daylight, but dark under stars. Shadowed by me, can't break free. Always living my life just a step ahead of me. Just ahead of me. Just a step ahead of me. It's like he knows my every move. A heartbeat out of sync, but we're locked in a groove. Do I outrun him or let him win? In this game of shadows, where do I begin? I was shadowed by me, someone I can't see. A twist in the mirror, haunting mystery. He's got my life, my voice, my scars. It's me in the daylight, but dark under stars. Shadowed by me, can't break free. Always living my life just a step ahead of me. Just ahead of me. Just a step ahead of me. back, better watch your step. Stay on track, 'cause somewhere out there in the dark unseen is a doppelganger waiting, shadowing me.